So in the months since Apple Silicon came out, we've talked a lot about what is coming next and when to expect it, and I figured it might be worthwhile to break it down, sort of address the questions that I get most often, and just kind of make a guide on how to buy a Mac in 2021. Because it's a little confusing, and you don't want to get it wrong because we're on the edge of a pretty big transition. So let's talk about it. Apple Silicon has only been here for a couple of months, but it's already changed up a lot in the PC industry. I mean, Intel's coming out with their attack ads that are very bewildering. Even Microsoft has been attacking it. They've got this new Surface Pro ad where they're like, oh, well, look at that. You can take the keyboard off. You can't do that on your Mac. Never mind that our Surface Pro for $800 has a quad-core Core i3.
It's actually a dual Core i3. I looked it up. It's a dual Core i3 for like $900 with the keyboard.
Clearly, all of these attack ads are emblematic of the fact that people are a little nervous to see what Apple's got cooking. And the truth of the matter is, as good as the M1 Macs are, they are literally the tip of the iceberg. The first stab with recycled designs, they're not all that exciting. And that leaves us now in 2021, in nearly April, and we haven't heard a peep. So what I'm going to try to do today is break it down and discuss how you should go about buying a Mac in 2021. And of course, if you're as excited as I am to see what new Macs Apple has in store for us this year, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you don't miss a video. So the first thing that I want to do is list every single Mac that is on sale right now. So from cheapest to most expensive, the first Mac on the list is the M1 Mac Mini. Then above that, we go to the M1 MacBook Air at $1,000, but then we go back to the Mac Mini for the Intel version, and then we switch back to Apple Silicon for the M1 MacBook Pro. Then at the same price, $1,300, there's the 4K iMac. Above that, we go back to the MacBook Pro, the Intel 13-inch model. Then we go to the 27-inch iMac, then back to the MacBook Pro, the 16-inch, and finally, the Mac Pro. So what we can see from that list is that apart from the weird Intel Mac Mini and also technically the base model 1080p iMac, which is a whole other story that we'll get into in a different video, those kind of sit between the MacBook Air and the Pro. But apart from that, the cheapest computers on the list, or the least expensive, I should say, are running Apple Silicon. So what we're thinking about now, instead of like, okay, what's the next processor that's gonna go in the 16-inch MacBook Pro, we should be thinking, what's the next tier of Macs to be upgraded? And clearly we're going bottom to top. Now, if you're trying to purchase a Mac, that is going to be very, very helpful in informing your purchase decision. Now, I'm gonna make an assumption here, and obviously this is April almost of 2021, so I don't know how things are going to change by the end of this year. So the assumption that I'm going to make is that all of the different categories of Mac that are on sale now are going to remain on sale, but will get replaced or upgraded with Apple Silicon. So what that looks like is 2 tiers of Mac Mini, a MacBook Air, 2 tiers of smaller MacBook Pro, a larger MacBook Pro, 2 tiers of iMac, and then finally a Pro desktop. So with that flowchart set up, we can assume that the next step in this chain of Apple Silicon would be either removing or replacing the Intel Mac Mini, getting rid of the 4 Thunderbolt port MacBook Pro and replacing that with something else, the smaller iMac, whether it be 21.5 or 24 inches, and then also you could say the 16-inch MacBook Pro. Now, that is a pretty large number of devices, and it's not guaranteed that those are all going to come at the same time. However, I think the common thread across them is that they'll probably share a processor. And admittedly, that's a larger tier than M1. M1 only had 3 devices. So if you are looking to buy a Mac this year, you need to judge whether what you want is going to be in a specific tier. The higher up the tier you go, the longer you're going to have to wait. It only makes sense. Like, for example, the MacBook Pro. We are hearing rumors now that they're not even going to go into production until the second half of the year. So that could be a WWDC reveal and launch as late as like September. That's still possible. They could even come out in October. We don't know. Right now, the strongest leaks are for the smaller iMac. That could be a WWDC thing, it could be an April thing, it could be a May thing. The timing is very unclear, but the point is, if you look at the Macs that are currently on sale, it should give you some clues as to how long you're going to have to wait. So with the example of the base model 4K iMac, right? A lot of the configurations for those things have been going away. The 1 terabyte SSD options, and I think the 512 as well, those are now gone. Also, let's not forget, the 21.5 inch iMac hasn't been updated since 2019. So that is like the biggest red flag that you could possibly get, that it ain't gonna be around for very much longer. So if you're looking at the smaller iMac, stop. Don't buy one of those. Now that's been obvious for a while. I've been saying for a long time, do not buy an iMac, but that gives you an idea of how long we're gonna have to wait for these things and in what order these upgrades are gonna be. Remember, the iMac was actually the most recent Intel upgrade we got. The 27-inch only came out in August of 2020, and iMacs tend to be upgraded a little bit less frequently than MacBooks. It's also worth noting that the 16-inch MacBook Pro was not updated in 2020. So what that tells us is that the 16-inch MacBook Pro is most likely going to precede a 27-inch or 30-inch Apple Silicon iMac. Now, as far as the Mac Pro, frankly, it's too early to tell. If you're shopping for a Mac Pro right now, then you should probably be exercising a lot of caution because, you know, you're talking something that starts at $6,000. At that point, patience needs to be the name of the game. We don't even know if the Intel Mac Pro is gonna go away. It's entirely possible that the Intel Mac Pro is gonna stick around for a couple of years. I mean, it was a very big deal when that came out, and it only came out a little over a year ago, so it stands to reason that the big guy Mac Pro, especially the higher tier configurations, those could stick around for another 4 years. We just don't know at this point. We've heard some rumors recently about like a G4 Cube style small miniature Mac Pro. Now, I'm not sure personally if that's going to be like a replacement for the higher tier Mac Mini, or if that is going to be a Mac Pro, or maybe they'll just call it Mac Mini Pro just to confuse me. You know, anything's possible, but that sounds like a very interesting device, I gotta say. So I think that's definitely something to keep an eye out for. But again, in terms of purchasing a Mac this year, the more sort of ambiguous things sound, that's usually an indication that it's going to take a little longer. When we're talking about the Mac Pro and we lack all these concrete details, that means they're probably not concrete yet. At this point, the iMac has become very, very reliable in the rumors. People are saying, oh, it's nearly ready. People are saying, okay, this is what it's gonna look like. We've got Apple shutting down some of the configurations for the current iMac, which hasn't been touched in 2 years. Those are some strong indicators that it's coming soon. The other iMac, we have not seen that. We've not even heard any rumors about whether or not there's going to be a screen size increase. So to me, that says later. Same thing with the MacBook Pro. We have a lot of information about, you know, bringing back ports, bringing back MagSafe, mini LED question mark, a whole new design, all of that stuff. That is a strong indication that MacBook Pros are around the corner. So the way to kind of go about this, if you are looking to make a purchase, is 2 things. Number 1, the more money you are going to spend on a Mac this year, the longer you are probably going to have to or want to wait, because, you know, we're taking a bottom-up approach. So if you're looking at the top of the totem pole, if you're looking at the Core i9 27-inch iMac and you're thinking, maybe I should pull the trigger, maybe you shouldn't. Just saying. I mean, the trickiest part is that there are still cases where people need to buy Macs right now. Obviously, my advice, ideally, in the perfect world, is whatever you're looking at right now, just wait for it to become Apple Silicon and then buy it, right? That's the easy advice. That's the simple step. However, that's not something that everyone is going to be able to do. I just had an email conversation with a subscriber a couple of weeks ago who was saying that they're really torn because the M1 wasn't quite as powerful as they needed it to be, and they ended up having to go for 16-inch MacBook Pros, like very, very spec'd out $6,000 ones. Now that's a situation that you can predictably regret later, right? At some point, you're going to say the M1X 16-inch MacBook Pro is objectively better. It's a better value. It's better in every way. But if that's not an option, then it's not an option. Now, if you can wait, then by all means do. And hopefully what I've talked about in this video is mainly just sort of getting your bearings in terms of the timing on these things and how to convert leak information into information about, okay, well, when is this going to come out? But if you need a computer right now, then you have to buy a computer right now. And you shouldn't feel bad about doing that, especially for the people who are saying they want to buy the M1 stuff, but they don't know whether they should wait for the M1X stuff. I think it's pretty clear that M1X is going to be on top of M1. Like, M1's not going anywhere. So if you are buying a base model MacBook Air, then by all means do, because it's not going to be replaced, you know, this year. Maybe an M2 MacBook Air will come out later or next year, but it's not going away, is my point. So as we're approaching April, I'm hoping that things are going to start getting clearer, because I know I've made a lot of videos talking about this, but I feel like I need to, because I get so many comments from people making questionable purchase decisions, and I want to try to put out as much information out there to say, have some patience, take a step back, manage your expectations, and let's see what happens. So I hope you found this video helpful. Let me know what Mac you're most excited for in the comments below, and definitely consider following me on Twitter @LukeMiani. And with that, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you all in the next video.